Hello, my terrific team. I'm going to share with you 2 different ways that you can add or subtract fractions. Make sure that you are focused and paying attention. You've done an excellent job with finding equivalent fractions. Now it's time we take it one step further and start learning how to add and subtract fractions. I'm going to start with a story about my neighbor. He has a dog. The dog barks a lot. He takes care of the dog by bathing him, walking him, feeding him. You might have a pet at home and you can relate to that. So I want to find out how much time he spends walking his dog and bathing his dog in about an hour's time. So for example, I know that he walks his dog for 1/3 of an hour every day. Okay, I also know that he bathes his dog for 1/4 of an hour. Maybe not every day, but maybe every other day. So if I want to find out the amount of time that he spends walking and bathing his dog, I'm going to add those 2 numbers together because I'm trying to find a total amount of time that he spends doing those 2 activities. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I need to do is find the LCD, which stands for least common denominator. Now you have your multiple sheet that you should have been studying this week, but you could use it with you today, and you have your multiple sheet so you can look up the multiples of 3 and 4. I'm going to ask you to help me list them here. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Now 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. I'm going to look for the least common number. When I look for the least common number, I notice that that is 12. Hopefully you agree with me. The next thing that I need to do, instead of taking this fraction and multiplying it by a random number to get an equivalent fraction, I need to find the pattern here, because in order to add or subtract fractions, you need to have the same denominator. So now I have to determine how many times do I need to repeat 3 to get 12. You know that 3 times 4 equals 12. You also know that whatever you do to the denominator, you need to do to the numerator. 1 times 4 equals 4. Now I need to do the same thing at the bottom. 4 times blank equals 12. Well, I know that 4 times 3 equals 12. 4 times 3 equals 12. Remember, I need to do the same thing on top. 1 times 3 equals 3. Now I have the same denominator and I can go ahead and add. 4 plus 3 equals 7. My denominator stays the same. He spends 7/12 of an hour washing and bathing his dog. Okay, nope, washing and bathing doesn't make sense. That's the same thing. Washing and walking his dog. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a different way that you can add or subtract fractions. It's a little bit of a different trick that some of you might really like to do. In this example, I'm going to subtract fractions. So we're going to say that you spend 7/8 of an hour studying. That's a long time. You should be studying about 7/8 of an hour. That would be very impressive. You do very well. So if you spend 7/8 of an hour studying and you spend 1/3 of an hour playing video games or watching YouTube, I want to find out how much more time you spend studying than playing video games. Well, if I want to find out how much more time between 2 things, I want to find the difference between the 2, which means I need to subtract. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take 7/8 and I'm going to subtract 1/3, the time I spend playing video games or watching YouTube, from my 7/8 of time, amount of time that I was studying. Something different that you can do besides finding the LCD is you can take the denominators and you can multiply them together. If you multiply the denominators together, you're going to get a multiple. It may not be the least common multiple, but you're going to get a multiple of that number. So 8 times 3 equals 24. So I'm going to make my new denominator 24, and now I'm going to try to figure out the pattern here and figure out how many times I need to repeat 8 to get 24. And I know, because I just did it, that 8 times 3 equals 24. I'm still going to use that same rule of whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top. 7 times 3 equals 21. Do the same thing for the bottom fraction. 3 times 8 equals 24. 1 times 8 equals 8. I'm then able to subtract because my bigger number is on the top and my denominators are the same. 21 minus 8 equals 13. My denominator stays the same. The difference of the amount of time that I spend studying compared to playing video games is 13/24. Now, here is the only thing that you need to make sure that you pay attention to if you decide to use this method of multiplying the denominators to get your new denominator. You have to make sure that this fraction is simplified. You can do that by trying to divide them both by 2, or maybe dividing them both by 3 to see if it can be simplified in any way. So think about that fraction for a second and think about if there is something, a number that can be divided evenly into 13 and 24. I don't think there's a number that can be divided into both, but if you do, we're going to talk about it. So that would mean that as of right now, this is a simplified fraction, 13/24. And if you're not convinced yet, we'll work through it together. So 13/24 would be my final answer. And please remember, if you get an improper fraction, or if you get a mixed number, or if you get a number that you think can be simplified, please try to simplify it. Make sure that you're thinking about, can this number be divided by 2? Can this fraction be divided by 3? Anything to help support your final answer, and so that you feel confident with it. Make sure that you are focused, you have your multiple sheet out, and we're going to get ready to do an excellent job on our graded assignment today. Thanks for watching.